Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're going to be taking a look at the top 8 deck lists for a 42-player event that took place on the 11th of the 8th, 2024, hosted in Germany by Battle Bear, who we have covered in the past. Super excited to finally have some data for Set 5 meta. This is the first event that I've been able to find at the very least, so I'm excited. We're going to jump straight into it. Of course, a quick shout out to the channel sponsor, Cardmarket. If you're looking for Lorcana singles at competitive rates, including the new stuff from Shimmering Skies, then do check out Cardmarket. But let's jump straight in and take a look at the top 8 deck lists. Alrighty, so at the beginning of a set, I always try and be a little more newcomer friendly. Hopefully there are plenty more people that are joining Lorcana with every set. Maybe this is the set where you've finally decided to jump in and start learning the game. So we'll try and break down each card at least to a small degree to know what it does. So first off, we have some Amber Emerald Under the Sea. This is a deck that was growing in popularity towards the end of set 4 format, having a couple of very respectable placements. And it's been predicted by a few content creators that I listen to that this deck would shine, especially with Bucky now being gone, or errated, should I say. And yeah, there's a lot of potential for this in set 5 meta, and here it is, the first winning deck list. So of course, a lot of this deck centered around Under the Sea. 8-cost uninkable Sing Together Song. Put all opposing characters of 2 strength or less at the bottom of their player's deck in any order. There are a lot of characters in the game that have this 2 strength or less, an awful lot. Just looking through this deck list, you can see plenty, and as we look through the other deck lists, just if you're a newer player, just keep an eye on how many of these characters actually fall into that range. But there are of course other ways that we have of reducing character strength to get more characters into this Under the Sea range. We're running 3 copies of Painting the Roses Red, 2-cost inkable Song. Up to 2 characters get -1 strength and you draw a card. So already those characters with 3 strength are suddenly in range, and we're drawing a card, which is very nice. And we're also running the Keeda. We've got 1 copy of the 1-drop to be a potential shift option and just a turn 1-drop, but most importantly 2 copies of the Floodborn 5-cost inkable 3/5 quest for 2. She can shift for 3, and on play reduce the strength of all characters on board by 3. So that's going to get even more characters into this Under the Sea range. Of course, there's other synergies here, running 4 copies of the Muses, 4-cost inkable 2, 4 quests for 1 with Ward, and whenever you play a song, you can return a character with 2 strength or less to their player's hand. So that's another way that we can control the board of their characters of 2 strength or less without necessarily needing the Under the Sea or needing to use it. Just playing on Painting the Roses Red and put a character from 3 to 2, and then Muses now can bounce it back to hand. So that's super cool. We also have an awful lot of discard going on, so to go through the rest of the songs, we've got 4 copies of that Bare Necessities, which of course is going to be great for sniping away like things like Be Prepared, A Whole New World, just locations that you don't want to deal with. Any non-character song, that's going to help keep them in check. 4 copies of that Sudden Chill to make the opponent discard a card. 4 copies of You Have Forgotten Me, which is an action which forces them to discard 2 cards. Sudden Chill can be sung as well, which is super good. And we're running 4 copies of Prince John, 3-cost uninkable 1/2 quest for 2. He has Ward, so he's hard to remove from the board, and whenever your opponent discards a card, you can draw a card. So if we're making them discard through the Sudden Chill, the Bare Necessities, the You Have Forgotten Me, then we're going to be drawing all the while. Of course, we've also got 4 copies of Ursa the Deceiver, the 2-drop to snipe songs away, so that's another way that we can, again, snipe songs, but also draw off of Prince John. We've got 3 copies of We Don't Talk About Bruno, 5-cost inkable Song, return a chosen character to their player's hand, then that player discards a card at random. So if your opponent doesn't have any cards in their hand, then this is just spot removal for any character on the board. And of course, if Prince John's on the board, then you're going to be drawing all the while. Going through the rest of the character package, as I mentioned, we've got 1 copy of Keeda to be a shift option. We are running that 4/4 Diablo line, the 1-drop being a 1/2 quest for 1, and you can look at the opponent's hand. And of course, the Floodborn 3-cost uninkable 2/2 quest for 1. You can shift onto a baby Diablo by discarding an action. You don't have to play any ink, has evasive, and whenever your opponent draws a card during their turn, you draw as well. That's if they draw for turn. If they play rabbits, friends on the other side, Rapunzel, anything that's going to let them draw, you draw for each of those. And it's a proven threat. I think there's still a lot of conversation about how much Diablo is going to be around these days, because obviously, like, he's a good card in and of himself, but it was the Bucky interaction that really made him, like, OP. I think he's got a solidified spot in this deck in particular. Whether he finds his way into basic Emerald Steel, like the new version of Emerald Steel discard without Bucky, or EA Tempo is still to be seen, and how popular he is will determine how many players are playing answers to him, how many brawls you're seeing, and like a lot of players are playing high counts of things like Fire the Cannons and Baboon, which obviously also helps with other things like the Flynn Rider. But it will be interesting to see where Diablo stabilizes in his meta share. But in this deck, it makes a lot of sense. We've got lots of actions we can discard to get him down. 4 copies of Aerial to help us find songs. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Choose a song to go into your hand. The others go to the bottom. And of course, being Singer 5, she can sing pretty much everything on the board and contributes 5 of the level you need to sing Under the Sea along with another character. We're also running from set 5 2 copies of the new Prince Naveen, 4-cost uninkable 3/3 quest for 2, Singer 6. And when you play this character, you can play a song of cost 4 or less for free. Sorry, cost 6 or less for free. So that is everything in our deck except Under the Sea. So Bruno, you're welcome. Sudden Chill, Bare Necessities, Painting the Roses Red. I'm still not entirely settled on how I feel about Naveen. He's definitely a powerful card. But yeah, I can see him putting work here, absolutely. And we've got 3 copies of Cricky, which is a 5-cost inkable 3/4 quest for 3. And on play, all of your characters get +3 strength, which is going to turn a lot of these really subpar bodies, like a 1-drop Diablo, the Ursula, even the Aerial potentially, and things like that. It's going to make them hit all the harder. And we're running 2 copies of Sahis, which can be an evasive answer for Diablo at Cove, and we're not sure what sort of evasive spice is going to pop up out of nowhere. Like bigger evasive bodies could be really hard for this deck to remove if it can't, like, obviously with Kida, you're most likely to get most of them into Under the Sea range, but nonetheless, I like having the Sahis here, and he can sing Bare Necessities and Sudden Chill. So yeah, a really, really solid looking deck. Super glad to see this performing well right at the beginning of format. Of course, again, it is beginning of format. We don't know how things are going to settle, but really great to see this deck putting in a shift. So congratulations to them. Oh, before Oliver took, quick mention to the 2 locations. We've got 1 copy of Hidden Cove, 1-cost inkable location, 1 to move there, 6 willpower, no passive law, but any characters there get +1 strength and willpower, so you can keep a lot of things out of the range of things like Grab Your Swords, Brawl, Teeth and Ambitions, opposing decks that care about 2 strength or less, all those sort of things, you can offset them. And 1 copy of Rapunzel's Tower, 2-cost inkable location, 1 to move there, 8 willpower. Your characters get +3 willpower while here, which is going to do even more to offset our opponent's maths and just make all our bodies that much bulkier. So yeah, just a 1/1 count here. Just I feel that this is probably just testing the waters. It'll be interesting to see if these Rapunzel's Towers do make their way into meta, but yeah, once again, congratulations to them. And the other Amber Emerald deck that we have in top 8, we don't have a name for this person. There's 4 lists, actually, where we don't have a name for them. My information today comes from inkdex.com, which will be linked down below. But yeah, a few names unavailable, but this be the list. And yeah, this is a lot heavier on the discard sort of stuff. We're still running 1 copy of Key to 1-drop, of 4 copies of the Floodborn, so higher odds to get Under the Sea into range. The lower end looks very much the same. The Prince Johns, the Diablo line, 2 Sahis, Aerial. We are running 1 copy of Ursa Deceiver of All, 3-cost inkable, 2/3 quest for 1, and when she sings a song, you sing it again for free, and then that song goes to the bottom of your deck. So that's going to get us a double Be Our Guest, Painting the Roses Red, Bare Necessity, Sudden Chill, all of these things. So that could be useful. We're also running the Floodborn Ursula Eric's Bride, 4-cost uninkable 2/4 quest for 2. You can shift onto another Ursula by discarding a song, which obviously we have plenty of, and we've got those 4 Ursa Deceivers to be a shift target. And whenever she quests, you get a free Bare Necessities, basically. So this is pretty cool, and to have it on a body is good. You can reuse it, and obviously questing for 2 is always good. We're also seeing 1 copy of that Lucifer Cunning Cat, 5-cost uninkable 2/2 quest for 2. On play, your opponent discards 2 cards or 1 action. If they have an action, they can just discard 1. But yeah, super dirty card, along with You Have Forgotten Me, can just absolutely destroy hands and could win the game there and then. 1 copy of Bare Necessities to help us find key pieces, and again, it's a song that has synergy with the Muses, as do all of our songs. Painting the Roses Red, Bare Necessity, Sudden Chill, You Have Forgotten Me. We've looked at all of these things. 3 copies of You're Welcome, which I actually think I missed in the prior deck list. I apologise. Another 2 new tool from set 5, 4-cost inkable song, shuffle chosen character, item or location into their player's deck. That player draws 2 cards. I really like this card. Targeting your your own cards is perfectly fine just to get a quick draw off. Return the aerial back so you can reuse that later, the Ursa Deceiver. Just anything cheap, you can like just do a nice dig through your deck. Of course, you do shuffle before you do the dig, so you might draw into the thing that you shuffled in, but maybe sometimes you want that. But yeah, just the diversity here, and obviously you can use it on your opponent, and in a preferable board state, they've got no hand. You sing your welcome, give them 2 cards, and then you sing, you play, you have forgotten me. I do not want you have forgotten me to be a song. So yeah, you're welcome, one of my favourite new cards from set 5. We're running 2 of the code, 3 Under the Sea, 3 Bruno, and just 1 copy of that Prince John's mirror. You can pay it 1 cheaper if you've got a Prince John on board, which we are running 3 copies of, so we can play this for 2. And at the end of each opponent's turn, if they have more than 3 cards in their hand, they discard to 2, which is going to make it so much easier to enable this. Okay, you discard to 3, and then on my turn 4, I'm going to play You Have Forgotten Me and sing Sudden Chill with something. So yeah, this is what I was scared of. I'm terrified of this. Also running 1 copy of that 1-drop Clarabelle 1/2 quest for 1. On play, you can pay 2 to banish a chosen item, which I think is super good, giving, I like, in Emerald, I think it's the best item removal they have. If you were with Steel, you would 9 times out of 10 play Benja, because obviously this is the same cost essentially for lower stat line, but this can just be a 1-drop character if and when you need it to be. So yeah, super big fan of that. So yeah, looks filthy, don't want to play against this, but congratulations to them. Going back to second place, we have the first of our 3 SteelSong lists that made this top 8. So SteelSong, right from the get-go, a popular contender in set 5 format. So we're seeing a lot of the traditional stuff that we expect to see from SteelSong. We're seeing there's 4 copies of Aerial to find songs and sing them on the cheap. We're running a 4/4 Queen line, which is another way to get an early shift line off because the Floodborn shifts on 2. And this ability is really great, giving 1 character +4 strength and another -4 strength. So that just helps you control the board with your characters, and also running 2 copies of the World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which banishes a character with 5 strength or more, which some characters already fall into this. The likes of Maui, Maleficent, Tamatoa, you might start to see Mufasas and Sheriff of Nottingham's and stuff like that, but obviously the Queen helps get even more characters into this range. 4 copies of Rapunzel, 4-cost inkable, 1/5 quest for 2, and on play you remove up to 3 damage from one of your characters, and you draw a card for each one, so one of the best draw engines of the game, really strong. And of course that song lineup, 2 copies of Bare Necessities to snipe those non-characters, 4 Storm to do 2 damage and draw a card, one of the best songs in the game. 4 copies of Strength for a Raging Fire, 3-cost inkable, and you do 1 damage for every character you have on board, so the wider your board, the numbers sure rack up on this. 4 copies of Along Came Zeus, 4-cost uninkable song, deal 5 damage to a chosen character or location, which is just instant removal for a big part of the meta. And of course 4 copies of That Whole New World, 5-cost uninkable song. Each player discards their entire hand and draws 7 cards. And yeah, the name of the game SteelSong is like, I mean, the name of the game of Lorcana is to just outvalue your opponent, but SteelSong like just kind of does it better than anything else, really. Just in its ability to play lots of really aggressive cheap characters on the board, have these singers that can play these songs sooner than you would ordinarily, refresh the hand, and then just like have more cards to play in play than your opponent overall, and just overwhelm them. We're running 4 copies of Cinderella Ballroom Sensation, who's a 1/2 quest for 1 and sing a 3, so putting her down on turn 1 is great to threaten so many of our songs. Bare Necessities, Criminal Mind, but most commonly the Storm Rage On is what you'll see more often than not, to just instantly respond to the opponent's 1-drop, if it's 2 willpower or less especially. We are running 4 copies of the new set 5 Daisy Duck, 1-cost uninkable, 1/4 quest for 2, and on quest your opponent looks at the top card of their deck. If it is a character card, they put it into their hand. If not, it goes to the bottom of the deck. So yeah, the shiny new toy for Amber, SteelSong decks being built to take advantage of this, hyper aggro decks being built to take advantage of this. I think it's the SteelSong decks that in the long run will be the decks that like succeed the most with this. I do feel like just hyper aggro gets pushed out by SteelSong and Sapphire Steel and like even Emerald Steel and EA Tempo potentially, depending on their build, and like even Ruby Amethyst decks moving, or sorry, more red-blue decks that are playing the Sisus, which most are. Yeah, I think Hyper Aggro gets pushed out, but I still think you see Daisy Duck in a lot of SteelSong decks, and yeah, she just asks so much of the opponent to remove. More often than not, you're going to get at least 2 quests out of her, maybe more. Of course, that's in the early game. Later on in the game, she's instantly removed by Medusas and Brawls and stuff, but that's value for a 1-drop character, so super strong. 2 copies of Piglet, 2-cost Inkable, 2/2 quest for 1, and when he quests, if you have 2 other characters on board, he quests for 3, so just another nice aggro option. 4 copies of Ursula Vanessa, 2-cost Inkable, 1/4 quest for 1, and Singer 4, so she can sing all of our songs from Along Came Zeus down, and again, the idea of this deck is just, without having to pay too much, just get characters down that can then outvalue in the long run, so like, you only pay 2 to get this down, and then you're threatening Zeus, which is really good. 4 copies of Mr. Smee, who has incredible stats, 2-cost Inkable, 3/3 quest for 2, and at the end of your turn, if you don't control a captain, then he takes 1 damage. We don't have any captains, we don't care. He's so well statted, and Smee is still here to stay. 2 copies of Benja to answer opposing items. On play, he removes an item, and 2/3 quest for 2 is pretty good. And 2 copies of Lawrence, 3-cost Inkable, 0/4 quest for 2, but while he has no damage, he's a 4/4, so just a really great beat stick, great for responding to Flynn Rider. We have other ways of responding to Flynn, just with Storm and Strength, but yeah, it's a way that you can do it if you're missing those, but just a big bulky body that quests for 2. And we're also running 2 copies of Aerial Sonic Warrior, 6-cost Inkable, 3/8 quest for 2, shift 4 onto your other Aerial, and whenever you play a song, you can pay 2 to deal 3 damage. So you never put this down, you nearly never put this down against red decks, because Medusa, but outside of that, so many decks can really struggle to answer this, and that ability can be pretty good for clear controlling the board. So looks super strong. Only new toys really being the Daisy Duck, that's it. Other than that, looking very similar to how it did last format, so congratulations to Pavel. Going on to our other SteelSong deck, in top 4, we have Der Hut playing a very similar looking list, also utilising the Daisy Duck, the 1-drop uninkable. But we are playing that Robin Hood shift line, 4 copies of the 1-drop 2/2 and 4 copies of the Champion of Sherwood, 5-cost Inkable, 3/6, quest for 2, shift 3. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, gain 2 lore, and when this character is banished in a challenge, you may draw a card. So a couple of really strong effects. The stat line is really nice, again, except against Medusa, but this whole deck falls to Medusa, so you just have to play into it, and then eventually it will stick. But this is just another early shift option for us to sing A Whole New World and Grab Your Swords and Along Came Zeus nice and early. We're also running 2 copies of Cinderella Stout-Hearted, 7-cost Inkable, 5/5 quest for 3, shift 5, resist 2, and whenever you play a song, you may challenge ready character. This character may challenge ready characters this turn, which is she's just such a huge threat. Obviously, we're already running 4 copies of the 1-drop, so we have that as a shift line. And yeah, a lot of decks can really struggle to answer this outside of things like Let It Go and World's Greatest Criminal Mind. With that resist 2, she just asks so much, and she's one of the most aggressive questers in the deck. So you'll love to see it. And then finally, another set 5 toy. We have the new Pete, games referee. 3-cost Inkable, 3/3, quest for 1, and blow the whistle. When you play this character, opponents can't play actions until the start of your next turn. This is another card that I'm not sure how it's going to settle. I think in Steel Amethyst decks, it absolutely is an auto include. I think SteelSong, it's going to be kind of similar to things like Piglet. Like you'll see it in some variants, because just the ability to if you've got a singer on board like an Aerial who's dry, go into your turn, play out a couple of cards, finish our hand, sing Whole New World with the Aerial, refresh with a load of ink, extend the board with daisies and Smees, and then just play Pete, so assure that they can't play B-Prep, they can't play Grab Swords. That will just win you the game there and then in some situations. So yeah, I do think Pete is a fair include, so huge congratulations to The Hut. And our final SteelSong list in top 8, another player whose name I unfortunately do not have. They are running that Queen line, they're running that Robin Hood line. We're also seeing 2 copies of the Aerial Sonic Warrior. We're seeing those 2 copies of Cinderella Stout-Hearted. Also 2 copies of Tinkerbell in this deck. 6-cost Inkable, 4/5 quest for 2. Shift is irrelevant, but she's got Rock the Boat on play. She does 1 damage to all opposing characters. And Puny Pirate, when you banish a character in a challenge during your turn, you can deal 2 damage to a chosen opposing character, which is just a really nice board check, nice mid-game threat. We are running those 3 copies of Pete in this deck as well. Also 1 copy of the Prince Naveen, who we've already talked about, so a way to instantly sing all of our songs. And again, he's singer 6, so that's nice to have on the board. And we are running 2 copies of Sleepy's Flute, 2-cost uninkable. Item, exert. If you play the song this turn, gain 1 lore, which can give you nice reach in those longer matchups, especially against control. So yeah, looks really good. So 3 quite very similar, but utilizing different tech options from set 5, and again, this one in particular using Tinkerbell. So, but to be honest, that's not uncommon. I think even during set 3 and 4, like, I think 80% of the shell was fixed, and then there was like 20% of cards, probably less than that, that tended to be more flex and player preference, and I don't see that changing unless we find a definitive reason to believe one is superior to the other. But again, it's very early format, but great to see SteelSong doing well, so congratulations to them. Going back to top 4, we have Hetty with our one and only Sapphire Steel list. I recently did an interview with Moyen, who made top 16 at Disney Lorcana Challenge Bologna, and talked all about his Sapphire Steel list. Obviously, that's with an emphasis on set 4, but we do talk a little bit about the development of it into set 5, and just Jan's just a fantastic Sapphire Steel player. So quick plug for that. I highly recommend it. It was a super fascinating chat, and I know I've got a lot of friends that are big Sapphire Steel stands, so they will be glad to see it well represented in the new meta. Let's go for the items first. We are running 4 copies of that Porpsicle to draw a card, and of course we can remove it to heal 2 damage, which can be relevant if we just want to put it in the discard to recycle it with Tamatoa. We've got 4 copies of Fortress Sphere also to draw a card, and you can pay 1 and banish the item to give Bodyguard, which is rarely relevant, but even if it matters 1 in 100 games, then I'd rather have it than not have it. 4 copies of that Fishbone Quill, 3 cost Inkable, put any card from your hand into your Inkwell face down. This can be uninkables. So playing this on turn 3, then you immediately exert it, so you ink up to 4, and then on your turn 4 you can ink to 5 and then use this to go to 6 technically. So you can be playing 6 drops on turn 4, which we have a few of. We're of course running 2 copies of that Lucky Dime, 7 cost uninkable item. Exert, pay 2, choose a character of yours and gain lore of that character's lore. So you can already see a few bodies in here that quest for 2, but this Tamatoa is the icing on the cake. 8 cost inkable, 5/8, quest for 1. On play and on quest, you can put an item from your discard into your hand, so recycle those items, and he gets +1 lore for each item on the board. So the idea is we would love to build up our item count. Lots of Porpsicles, Fortress Spheres, Fishbone, and a Lucky Dime on board. Get Tamatoa to that 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe even 7 lore. I've seen it at 10. I've casted games where I've seen it at 10, so even that can happen. But yeah, get Tamatoa up as high as you can concerning lore, and then you're in a position where you can quest with him and exert the dime and sometimes win the game there and then. So that tends to be the strategy of this deck. 4 copies of Zeus for removal, 4 Whole New World for the hand refresh, and 2 Grab Your Swords for some spread damage. We're running 3 copies of Hades, 7 cost uninkable, 3/6, quest for 2, and on play, a chosen character goes into its player's Inkwell face down and exerted, so it's just instant removal for opposing threats as long as they don't have ward. Yes, it goes into their Inkwell, but sometimes we don't care. It's just more important to clear the board. And of course 3/6 is not a bad stat line, doesn't like Medusa, but even if you do get Medusa, you got the use out of Hades just for playing him, and he's another character to the quest for 2. 4 copies of that Tinkerbell that we've discussed. Also a new toy from set 5, we've got the new Simba, son of Mufasa, 6 cost inkable, 3/5, quest for 1. Shift 4 is irrelevant, although we could run a Floodborn target, but I don't think you ever would run the 1 drop in this. And then Fearsome Roar, when you play this character, banish an item or location. So we're getting rid of opposing Lucky Dimes, Fishbone Quills, maybe Maurice's Workshop, if that continues to be a thing. Get rid of those Queen's Castles, the libraries, the hidden coves, and any other locations that may come into format. And of course, Queen's Castle has kind of been one of the biggest banes of this deck's existence as it is, so a nice easy removal target for that. You could also go Kuzco, but that puts it into the Inkwell, so this player opting for Simba. Also running 4 copies of the new Donald Duck, 5 cost inkable, 3/4, quest for 2, and on play, the top card of your deck goes into your Inkwell face down and exerted. The same ability as Mickey Mouse, but inkable, cost 2 more, 3/4, and quest for 2. So this is another way that this deck can just get to that high ink count really early. If we go Mickey on 3 and Donald on 4, then on 5, then we're at least playing 7 drops, and that's not even accounting for maybe on 3 we did Fishbone Quill instead, and you could get even higher that way. So that's super strong. And another card, a new toy from set 5 that's going to take advantage of all these ways to do an additional ink during the turn, is the new Chicha. 2 cost uninkable, 2/1, quest for 1, support, and 1 on the way. I still think that's funny. During your turn, when you put a card into your inkwell, if it's the second card you've put into your inkwell this turn, you may draw a card. So if we put the Chica down on 2, yes, there are answers to her. Fire the Cannons, Baboom, Teeth and Ambitions, Brawl, just a single Tinkerbell, although that will be later in the game most of the time, unless you're shifting. But if you can make this Chicha stick, then you can get insane value off of this. Putting this Chicha down on 2, and then on 3 playing Fishbone, and then doing an extra ink, already you're drawing a card. Putting this down on 2 and inking and then playing Mickey Mouse on 3, you're drawing a card. Playing Donald Duck, as long as you do your standard ink once per turn, then you're drawing an additional card. I suppose you could not. Like, you could have 8 ink and just go Mickey and then Donald, and then that's still your second ink for the turn. So Chicha could just generate incredible card advantage. 4 copies of Mr. Smee for incredible stats and questing. 4 copies of Flavisham, who, if you're new to the game, Flavisham is one of the best draw engines in the game. I think the best, although the winner of DLC Bologna says it's Maurice's Workshops, and they won, so who am I to argue? But Flavisham, 4-cost Inkable, 1/6, quest for 1. On play and on quest, banish one of your items, draw 2 cards. Insane. And of course, 4 copies of Cogsworth, 5-cost Inkable, 2, 5 quest for 2. Shift 3 is irrelevant, but we've got Ward, so we're hard to remove, and your other characters get resist 1, which can really upset the opponent's math. So, yeah, this looks like a really solid build of Sapphire Steel. Like, these are the sort of new toys I would be expecting to see. I think this Chicha is definitely worth trying to make work. And yeah, having Donald, so you just get to this higher ink count even sooner, and like the card equity in Sapphire Steel is so good. Like, the high end is so good that you have every incentive to get there as soon as possible. I think some players will prefer the Kuzco over the Simba, potentially. I still think the Simba is an absolutely fair ad, but yeah, this looks like a build that I feel like will not change much throughout the season. Of course, you'll see some, like, maybe Chicha doesn't make the cut, and Simbas could be replaced for Kuzcos, maybe even a lower count. And there's a new 2-cost action, the one with the worst fairies on it, where it's just 2-cost action. It's got the same ability to put, but it goes into the inkwell, so it's Kuzco's ability on an action. Some players will opt for that, but yeah, other than that, this looks like a really nice place to start. So congratulations to Hetty. Alright, we've got 2 decks left to look at. First of all, we've got some Amethyst Steel. Now, I'm quite happy to see this because, like, I know the source here is Trust Me Bro, but, like, I'm about to record my 10 day 1 decks for set 5, which, again, I know I'm late, but I'm doing it anyway. And I've got all the decks together, I just haven't actually recorded it. And then this information for these deck lists came out and obviously immediately became the priority. And this is quite similar to what I've built, except I'm rocking the new 6-cost Jafar. But other than that, very similar to what I've made, so that's reassuring to see. But yeah, another super low to the ground deck, especially I think very much championed how good this deck could be in set 4. And yeah, set 5 it could absolutely look to do very well, especially in the early days if it can run into a lot of those hyper aggro decks. So we'll start with the locations. We're of course running 3 copies of that Queen's Castle, 4-cost Inkable, 1 to move there, 7 willpower, 2 passive lore gain, and at the start of your turn, for each character there, you draw a card. This has been one of the most powerful cards in the game since we received it. It is the most powerful location in the game. But we do have a new location that I know a lot of Amethyst fans are a big fan of, which is the Library. 3-cost Inkable, 1/8, 1 passive lore, and whenever a character is banished while here, you can draw a card, which can be really good to, like, if you put this down on turn 5, 6, and you can immediately move a couple of characters there, and that just safeguards you, like, helps you keep tempo. You can challenge into the opponent knowing that you're going to get a draw off, even when they trade, or even if you're just questing and knowing that, okay, you challenge me and then I'm drawing for each one. So it's really nice. And of course, our 1-cost characters have great synergy with this. 4 copies of Chernobog's Followers, 1-drop Inkable, 2 1 quest for 1, and on quest you can banish him to draw a card. So this card is strong anyway. It's a great 1-drop. 2 strength is enough to check some things, and just that versatility of being at, like, if you know you can get away with questing and sitting there and surviving, then you could just sit there and keep questing. But whenever you're ready, just take that draw, thin the deck out a little bit more. And of course, if he's at the library, you're drawing an additional card. And 4 copies of the Magic Broom, 1-cost Inkable, 1/2 quest for 1. And if you play another character, you can banish the Broom to draw a card. Even if he's not dry, like, you could, with 2 ink, you could go put down Broom and then put down Chernobog and then immediately banish the Broom if you so wanted to. So yeah, just another cheap character that you can put down and could, like, it's only questing for 1 each turn, but they add up if your opponent just ignores him. And whenever you're ready to, you can take that additional draw as long as you put down another character. And again, if he's at the library, then you're drawing an additional card, so that's super good. We've got a basic Amethyst package in here. 4 copies of Snake, 2 cost Inkable, 2/2, quest for 1, and on play you return another character to your hand. If you don't, then with the Mana Mims, if you don't bounce a character to your hand, they're banished. So you never want to do that. But the bounce effect is really good. Great synergy with these come into play abilities, like 4 copies of Merlin Goat, 4 cost Inkable, 4/3, quest for 1. On play and on leaving play, you gain 1 lore, so great reach with this. 4 copies of Rabbit, 4 costing, uninkable, 2/3, quest for 1, and you draw a card when he enters and exits the board. So this is how we're going to accumulate so many cards. We are running 4 copies of that new Pete to stop our opponent playing actions, and of course we can bounce this and reuse it. 3 copies of Benja to take away items, and of course if there's a lot of items, we can reuse this with our bounce effects. So much synergy here. And 4 copies of Madam Mim Fox, 3 cost Inkable, 4/3. You have to bounce a character to let her make a stick, but she has Rush, and 4 strength on a 3 cost character that with Rush is incredible. It's been a meta, it's set the standard of the meta since Rise of the Floodborn. An incredible card. We've got a new toy from set 5, the Madam Mim Elephant, 4 cost Inkable, 3/7, quest for 1. You have to bounce a character to your hand to let her stick, and at the start of your turn you can move up to do damage from this character to another chosen opposing character. 3/7 on turn 4 is so much to answer for a lot of decks, especially steel decks. Like, it just sits there. And if you can challenge and take something out and put 2 damage on yourself, and then at the beginning of your next turn you're then putting that 2 damage on the opponent, that feels super good. And again, as we've established, bouncing characters back to our hand is a good thing to have. 4 copies of Tinkerbell and 2 copies of the Tiny Tactician, so we have this available as a shift option from turn 4, and we've already looked at Tinkerbell's effect. But yeah, a great mid-game threat. Quest for 2, makes your opponent think twice about questing. We love her. 3 copies of Baboom, 2 cost Inkable, action to do 2 damage, which can be super important for Diablos, Flynn Riders, and again, we've got other ping, like on play when you play Tinkerbell, so maybe this is the last 2 you need. 4 copies of Friends on the Other Side, which is the 3 cost Inkable Song, draw 2 cards, drawing cards as king. 4 Zeus to remove targets, and we've looked at the location. So yeah, this looks super strong. I really want to see if Jafar can work in this deck, but looks really good, so congratulations to them. And then our final deck list, a bit of absolute spice. We have some Sapphire Emerald. So a lot of these Sapphire cards we've discussed, running 3 copies of that Lucky Dime, 4 Fishbone Quill, we've got the 4 Porpsicle, running 2 copies of Ice Block, 1 cost uninkable item, and you can exert, chosen character gets -1 strength this turn, which can just help you with challenges. But we are running the Muses, which when we play a song, character with 2 strength or less returns to their hand, so another way of getting that online. And we are running 3 copies of Under the Sea, which we've already discussed, so another card that can get that in, more characters into range for that. We're running 3 copies of Flaversham anyway, so we have item synergy. We've got 2 copies of Tamatoa, so we could even more item synergy. With items on the board, he gets more lore, and we can recycle these, so that sounds super good. 1 copy of Judy Hops. On play, you can banish an item, and that item's controller draws a card. So getting rid of dimes, getting rid of Fishbone Quills, and in a pinch, we can use it on one of our own items to draw a card, and she quests for 2. Running 4 copies of Belle, 4 cost Inkable, 2, 4 quest for 1. She has Read a Book, which lets you put an additional card from your hand into your Inkwell, face down and exerted, including non-inkables. And her second ability, the most important one, if you've got 10 or more ink in your Inkwell, she quests for 5. So she's super aggressive and really great synergy with the dime. If you've already got the dime down and 10 ink in your Inkwell at least, then put down the Bell, and as long as you've got 2 ink to pay for the dime, then you're immediately getting that boost. 2 copies of that Cricky that we've already looked at to boost strength to give us a bit more board control. We're running 4 copies of 1 Jump Ahead, 2 cost uninkable Song. Put the top card of your deck into your Inkwell face down and exerted. So playing this on 2 is a great way to skip to 4. So like item on turn 1, 1 jump on turn 2, and then turn 3 we can be playing Flaversham, and of course just Ramp is the name of the game. In the vein, we're also running 4 copies of the new T-Po, 2 cost Inkable, 1, 2 quest for 1, and on play you can put a card from your hand into your Inkwell face down and exerted. So kind of a cross between 1 jump and Fishbone Quill. Of course this depletes your hand. I think playing this on 2 makes you super vulnerable to discard decks, If they're playing Whole New World, then that's great for you. Like, you want to be running into the decks that want to play a Whole New World, because you're not doing a whole lot of drawing, you're just ramping, and if they can refresh your hand, then great. But we can draw from Flavisham, and we are running 3 copies of the new Remember Who You Are. 4-cost uninkable action. If chosen opponent has more cards in their hand, then you draw cards until you have the same. So there is synergy there, of course. If on 2 we're playing Tipo, and then maybe on turn 3 we're playing Fishbone, like inking, playing Fishbone, inking again. Maybe then we're playing singing one jump ahead with Tipo. Like, maybe that's not. I think you could do that. I think that completely empties your hand. I'd have to think it through a little bit more. But my point being, just emptying your hand as much as you can is going to get Remember Who You Are online a lot more. And we are running 4 copies of the new Clarabelle. 7-cost Ingable, 5/6, quest for 2. Shift 5 is irrelevant. We're not running a Floodborn. I want to see Morph in this deck, to be honest. And keep in step. At the end of your turn, if chosen opponent has more cards in hand than you draw until you have the same number. So a card maybe I was a little bit hard on in my set review, but in a deck like this, like these colours, it makes sense for, because we're just emptying our hand and then waiting to either get the Remember Who You Are or the Clarabelle, which again, if they empty their hand, then maybe we don't get as much advantage off of that. But if they're emptying their hand, then they're kind of in the same position as us in a way, but we have more ink and hopefully better top decks. Maybe not all the time. 3 copies of Strike a Good Match, 2-cost Inkable Song, draw 2 cards, discard a card. So this is a way to get through our deck. And 2 copies of the new Mother Gothel Unwavering Schemer. 6-cost Inkable, 4/6, quest for 2, shift 4 is irrelevant, and the world is dark. On play, each opponent chooses one of their characters to return to their hand. So Mother knows best, but gets round ward because your opponent chooses, which if they have an extra character, which is not your preferable target, then feels bad. But a lot of the time, like Tremaine and B-Kings get their value a lot, always got their value a lot. So I've got faith that Mother Gothel will come through. Yeah, I think I'd like to see Morph in here, maybe just for my entertainment more than it actually being the right choice. But this looks super fun. 4 copies of Mother Knows Best as well, I missed, and 4 copies of You're Welcome. Yeah, super spicy. How good will it be going forward? Is this a one-off? I can't wait to find out. Congratulations to them. And there we have it for the top 8 deck lists for the 42-player event hosted by Battle Bear. So 2 immediate things to point out. No Ruby Amethyst and no Ruby Sapphire. And no Hyper Aggro. I was actually expecting Hyper Aggro to do well in the first, at least the first couple of weeks. Maybe it still will. But no Ruby Amethyst, no Ruby Sapphire. Fascinating. I mean, it makes sense. I think if you want to play with new cards, they're not the colours really to play with. I don't think they change all that much. But yeah, SteelSong definitely performing the best out of them all. But yeah, what do you think of these deck lists? I'll hear all about it down below. But that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support. And we'll see you soon.